Hi guys, welcome again to another show. Today I'm going to be discussing something along the lines of the image editing, and in particular I'm going to be discussing Silver Efex from Nik Software. So let me tell you a little bit about Nik Software. It's applications made by Google, and I've been using it almost exclusively for the last year and a half, 2 years in all my landscape photos. It is a very powerful editing software. And now a while ago, I did a video on how I use color effects in editing my landscape photos, and I'll link that at the back of the end of this video, so you can have a look at that as well. But today I'm going to be talking about Silver Efex. Now, when I use Lightroom and I do black and whites, I've got certain black and white presets which I really like, especially if I'm doing people portraits, wedding photos, all that kind of stuff. But for landscapes, they are just not quite as punchy. They work perfectly, but I just feel that, excuse me, in certain places, Silver Efex has got a way better black and white. Now, what I've also must add to this is that there's only certain images that work with Silver Efex. If you want something really arty, grungy, yes, then Silver Efex is perfect. But I personally am not a big fan of the Silver Efex effects that it gives on the images in portraits and in all those kind of things. So that's why when I use Silver Efex, it's images I specifically shot for black and white, call it fine art, arty kind of look images. Long exposures generally work better for this, but these images were shot in mind with converting them to black and white at the end of the day. So let's dive into some of the images quickly. These are some images I shot on a recent trip down to Witstrand in the Southern Cape of South Africa, and they were all shot long exposures. Now, we had not the ideal scenario of weather conditions to shoot. I actually missed quite a good sunrise that morning, but I felt like sleeping in a bit. But this was shot at midday. I think it was like half past 12, 1 o'clock-ish, around about there. So it's not the ideal time to be shooting landscapes at all. But we had really moody light. I had a good composition, and it just worked. And these particular ones worked with long exposures. Now, this wouldn't have been anywhere near this if I shot just normal shorter exposures, like 1 second, 1/50th of a second, any of those kind of things. It just wouldn't have had the same impact as long exposures. Now, these were also shot so that I could convert them to black and white. Right, so let's have a look at one of these images I want to edit for you guys quickly today. It's this one. That is the raw image, unedited as it came from the camera. So you can see this is a 30-second exposure, f8, ISO 100 in midday, and shot with the Lee 10-stop big stopper. I used with this my Nissi polarizing filter just to take some glare off the water, and it worked beautifully in this scenario, and also on the side of the wall going out into the sea. So let's get this into Photoshop and start playing with it. Okay, right, it opens up in Camera Raw, so let's just make a couple of little tweaks. I want to add a little bit more contrast to that. Drop the highlights a little bit. We can even darken the shadows a tad. As you can see in the histogram, there's no details in the highlights, so there's no blown out highlights, and there's hardly any completely black pixels, so we've got quite a bit of leeway to play with here. So on the whites, we can push the whites a tad. Now, a cool way to check if you're clipping or not clipping, you can hold the Alt key, and it's the highlights, the shadows, the whites and the blacks. Those 4 sliders you can work with. As long as you hold down the Alt key on the, it's the same on PC and on Mac. If you hold down the Alt key, and if you slide the sliders left and right, you'll start seeing if there's any issues. There's no highlights clipping in this image. Shadows, there's no shadow clipping. Oh, there's a little bit. So generally if you want to set black and white points, what you take the whites, move it to the right, right there you start seeing clipping happening. So you just take it till you start seeing, there we go, there's a couple of pixels appearing. Now you do exactly with the same with the black. As soon as you start seeing there's a couple of pixels happening around about here on the rock. That's perfect. So now basically what you've done is you've equalized the black and the whites in this image. There's no clipping in either of them. So it's a perfect base to start working with. So now you can up your clarity a little bit. If you want to, you can just check if it's clipping, because clarity adds a little bit more finer contrast. So you can see, if you want to see if it's clipping again, so just Alt, just click on that. No, that's still the same. And the blacks, it clipped a little bit more, so you can take it out a slight bit. There we go. And then it's going to be a black and white image, so we don't need to worry about vibrance or saturation or white balance for that matter at all. Right, so you can play a little bit with your tone curve if you really want to. No, but we're going to be adding lots of contrast in it anyway, so let's just zero this out. Okay, you can add some raw sharpening if you want to. Same story, if you hold down an Alt key, you'll see the image in black and white. So if you want to play with your sharpening, because this will only show you the pixels where the sharpening will be happening. And the most important part is the masking feature. So this will show you the edges where sharpening is being applied. So this is applying to every single image, and as you move it to the right, it will start slowly start taking away, so you can see exactly where the sharpening will be. Right up until 100%, it's only those little fine edges that will get some sharpening added to it. I generally do this at about 85%, so that's fine. Okay, let's open up this image. First things first, I will check if there's any dust spots to be removed. Not going to worry too much about that now, because this is not what this tutorial is about. So let's get into Silver Efex. So open up filters, go to Nik Collection, Silver Efex Pro2. Okay, right, the image is just loaded, and what you'll see is on the left hand side you'll see a whole group of presets that's made by the guys from Silver Efex or from Nik Software. So you can have a quick scroll through that should you want to. Let's just open up the screen nice and big. And on the right hand side you've got your various options in your adjustments. So there's a whole heap of them. I'll go through them slowly, and I'll just show you the ones that I use and what I don't use and all that. Right in the middle you've got a red line that shows you before and after. Generally what I do is I slide it all the way to the left, so you can only see the effects that you're applying on the whole image. Right, so let's quickly go through these presets. Now the one I've got that opens up and is the neutral. There's no editing done to it, and you can work from this. You can start playing around with your filters and start seeing what the different effects is going to be, or you can just have a look and see if there's a preset that kind of looks cool that you might want to start and work from. Now I've got a couple that I've marked as favorites. I don't use all of them. Like, some of them are really not cool. Let's just have a look here. One that I particularly quite like is the one called Wet Rocks, and I use this as a base for most of my images when I start using Silver Efex when I'm editing my black and white landscapes. But just because there's some sepia ones there, huge big vignetting, very blown out highlights. The sepias are just horrible. One I've used a couple of times is called Trister. So if I just click on that, it gives you this oldish film look with lots of grain. Obviously you can adjust the amount of grain that's in the image while you're busy editing. This one works every now and again. There's a Trister 1 and a Trister 2. That one, the 3:1, has got no grain added to it. It's got a nice smooth texture. It's actually beautiful. I just don't like the colouring that much, but it works. Gives you this very smooth, blown out look. But let's go into the wet rocks, the one that I particularly quite like. There's some grain added to it, so let's first start, and I'm just going to turn off all the ones. So this is just the basic adjustments applied to this. Basic brightness, contrast and structure. And underneath each of these tabs there's a drop down with a couple of different extra options. So in the brightness there's highlights, the shadows and midtones in the bright sections. So you can play around with this. So those are just the highlights, so you can move that up and down. Shadows, you can, if you want to darken the shadows in the bright areas, you can do that. So there we go. I like the brightness that this thing adds. So let's go to the contrast, the same story. You amplify the whites. You can amplify the black, so you make it blacker or darker. Is there a term called blacker? Not sure. So I really like what it does to the sky. Now what you can do is you can process this two ways. You can have two images. You can just do a copy of this. You can process one just for the sky, or you can process and one for the foreground. But in this case it's not really needed. So if you really want to get that extra punch in it, I did use grade filters on this. I did not bracket this, it wasn't needed to be bracketed. So you can actually create your own bracket, but I'll talk about that in a later video. So let's just do that with the blacks, soft contrast. No. Let's take the soft contrast out so it becomes nice and gritty. And then you've got structure. Now we all know structure is basically clarity on steroids. It amplifies those midtones big time. I love structure, but sometimes it can be a bit too much. So let's just zero this out and see what it does. Okay, there's no structure added to this at all. So let's add some in the highlights. Let's add some of the midtones. Oh, that's nice. Not so much. Shadows. Just darkens them a bit, so let's move a bit. No, let's add them. And then fine structure. Can't really see a big difference there in this image. So, right, tonality. Right, so the tonality protection, if you take it all the way to the left, it's the full effect, if I'm correct. So you just add that up. So this removes some of the, all the way to the left, it's completely all the adjustments you've done here on this image. So as soon as you move it to the right, it removes some of it in those areas. So let's take the shadows. We don't want it all the way that black. So there we go, that's good. And then I want to highlight a little bit more punch here. So right, there we go. So this is the adjustments we did just using the global adjustments, the whole image. So that's without, that's a neutral image, and that's what we've added in. Amplified those blacks quite a bit, added in quite a bit of texture, especially in the clouds, and it darkened the details quite nicely. Right, there we go. I'm thinking I'm going to drop the contrast a little bit in this and open up the shadows a little bit more. I don't want the foreground and these rocks and everything to be that dark. So before and after. Okay, cool. Right, so selective adjustments I don't use all that much. Basically what you can do is you can add a control point right there, and you can increase the brightness in that particular spot. And you can add some contrast and some more structure. Now there is a drop down menu where you can, where you can amplify the whites, amplify the blacks, fine structure, or selective colorization, which you definitely don't want to do. So let's see what happens. See, it brings through some of the color from the original image, which is just horrible. You don't do that in 2017 to any of your images. So that's all the way set to 0. I don't think we need to amplify anything more or edit more in this particular one, but there you've got it. So you can set the size, you can work on a really tiny little spot, like right there, and open up a little bit more, and all those adjustments will be taken effect in that circle. So I don't use it often. You can use it, but that's all up to you. Right, so let's get on to the next one. So let's just have a look with and without. Slight little difference. And you can add multiple control points. You can link them all up so that the shadow, you can do the same adjustments to the shadows in this rock here, to the wall at the back, and to, let's say, this little rock on the left hand side here. So you can adjust all of them to be exactly the same. Or you can edit each one of them individually depending on where you want to put emphasis in your images. But like I say, I don't use it that often. The next thing is the color filter. Now with this it filters out red pixels, orange pixels, yellow ones, green ones. There is some green in this image, and blue. There's quite a bit of blue. So here you can play around. So just have a look and see which one of these effects you like the most. And you obviously you can apply different strengths to this image. I particularly quite like this red one. So let's just have a look. Yeah, I like that. These are just different. This is the effect that your camera would have had if you've had a red filter on. Remember in the old days, you had black and white film and you had different color filters to block out certain light spectrums. So you had a red filter on that will amplify the red in your images, give you more contrast. You had the same with the orange, the yellow, the green and the blue. So that's basically the same effect that you apply here, just digitally. And that particular feature is built into the Canon DPP software as well, where you've got the different filter effects. And it's built into the Canon cameras in your picture style editing as well. You can play around with your different filters over there as well to give you a different effect in your images. So, and you can also change the hue on that as well. This is on the red filter at the moment. So if you want to see what would have happened if you had something, a red filter with a little bit more blue cast, magenta cast, you can completely play around with it. I quite like this one. Okay, right, so before and after just looks like it added a little bit more contrast to the image, like that. Right, then we go on to film types. I see as soon as I added that on, there was some, because there's grain in the original image. So let's just move this all the way to the left to see what happens. It just dumps a heap of sand in it. So you can play around with this. Some of the older styles, the films had really beautiful grain. I don't want to have any grain on this image because it will take away from the softness of the water and the clouds and everything. So let's just move that all the way to the right. It removes all the grain, and then you can adjust how. Let's just move this up so it'll give you the effect. So you can adjust the softness or the hardness of the grain itself. You want to make it more softer or harder, you can do that. Like I said, I don't want anything in this image, so just move this all the way to the top, and then you won't see, you can move this, it won't make any effect. Right, so now again, before and after. I'm just going to zero out these sliders. This is the image without any adjustment to it. So now you can play it if you want to darken certain areas. If you know there's reds in your image, if you want to make them lighter, if you want to make them darker, you can do that with a red slider. The same, like I know there's some green in a moss growing on the side of the wall, so let's just play around with that and see what it does. Slight little difference right in here on the edge of the wall. But there's lots of blue in this image, so let's just have a look. Want to make it darker. See that sky changing a bit. Darken it a bit. Cyan, slight change, so let's darken that a slight bit. Violet, not much purple color in this one. The yellow of the sand, make that a little bit brighter. Okay, perfect. Levels and curves, we all know that from Photoshop and Lightroom. You can play around with that if you want to. I'm not particularly going to be playing with that in this image. I prefer it as it is. Okay, then there's another tab here for different film styles. Now what they've got is they've listed a whole heap of different films, black and white films that you can play around with. And as you scroll over them, it will give you a preview of what it will look like. It also adds in the grain, the contrast, everything as that filter, as that lens, as that film would have given you if you would have shot in film. So you can play around with that if you want a quick fix to your, if you want to fix this quickly, just go and select one of the film styles. You can see the curve changing up and down as we go through all of them. Again, there's very few of them that I like right out of the box. I prefer to do all my settings manually, so I just keep that at neutral. Then finishing adjustments. Here you can do a vignette to your image. White frames, dark frames. Don't do white frames, it just doesn't work. I prefer the lens fall off on this. It's just very subtle. If you go to the black frame, it gives you a definite frame, but the lens fall off is ever so slight. It just slightly goes darker to the outside. So I prefer the lens fall off 2 on this one. Now in toning, again, you've got neutral right at the top, then you've got different colors that you can tone this image to. So as you scroll through them, it will give you different effects. I quite like this one. It's a little bit more colder, bluer, which could work with this image. Even that one, I like that one. That's also nice. That could also possibly go, but again, it also depends on what you want to show in your final image. To me, black and white is black and white. Like that kind of stuff, it's just no, doesn't work. There's all your sepia colors. I quite like this one. It just gives it a little bit more colder look. So let's just go and see before and after. That's without any of the toning effect or the vignette. So I quite like that blue color. It might be a little bit too much. Yeah, that one's better for me. Okay, burn edges. Again, we'll give you a brief preview. It's just more vignetting options. That could possibly work. It's a little bit too much on the sides. I quite like that one. And then image borders. If you really want to do a border, you can do it here. I don't do borders in my images. Borders are so 90-90. Remove all borders. Okay. And there you go. And right at the bottom here, you've got a little bit of, you can show you where there's dark spots, the lighter spots, the whites, if you want to peek in really nice and close. As you move your mouse over your cursor over the image, it will show you 100% preview in the bottom right hand corner of the image. That's if you want to do some focus peeking to see if everything's sharp, if everything works. And then again also you can obviously turn it on and off to see where all the brights, the darks, the midtones and highlights is. So once you're happy with that image, you can have a look. Now if you remember, we moved this before and after slider all the way to the left. So if you go into that, you grab it and you move it to the right, you've got your before image. Now you can see the huge difference that is. Lots of beautiful contrast, lots of details brought out in the clouds, and it's just so much better. Now from here you can click OK, and this will open up as a separate layer on the image in Photoshop. Right, and there you have it. You've got your black and white image came into Photoshop on a separate layer, and then you can toggle it on and off before and after. This image just works so well in black and white. So, and now from here you can do a whole bunch of different things. There's a whole bunch of other Nik filters that you can use to enhance certain areas. Like, let's just get back to the little dust spot thing. So now that once you've added all these contrast and little adjustments in the black and white, you can start seeing dust spots come up. So let's just quickly remove them. Oh, that's about it that I can see. So there you have it, black and white image with Nik filters, and it's an awesome thing. A couple of other adjustments I might do here, but I might just do a noise reduction using Define from Nik filters. Resize it, sharpen it, add my watermark, and I'm ready to post it on the internet or wherever I want to do. So there you go, really easy, works like a bomb, and Silver Efex is highly recommended for these type of images. If you've got any questions, any suggestions that you'd like to make on this, please feel free to leave a comment, make them. If there's particular stuff that you'd like me to see me do, edit images, use different kind of techniques, please ask and I will see what I can do for you guys. Don't forget to click subscribe. I'll link the other Nik filters video that I've got. I'll link it up at the end of this now, and I hope to see all you guys soon. Right, cheers.